Busy day. They had the Democratic debate last night. I don't know who won. I was watching the analysis afterwards. They said, well, this person scored points, that person scored points. One person who is making news, of course, is the Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren exchange. But Elizabeth Warren was on my radar before the debate last night because this is a story I think I'm reading from AP, January 14th. Presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren says she wants to cancel up to $50,000 in college loans for most people on her first day in office without waiting for congressional approval. I'll just keep reading. Elizabeth Warren said she will order her Secretary of Education, if she becomes president, to cancel up to $50,000 in college debt for about 95% of student borrowers on her first day in office. Everybody says that, right? My first day in office, I'm going to get affordable health care. My first day in office, I'm going to build the wall. Her first day in office, trillions of dollars of debt is going to go away. Your student loan evaporates. This would erase the outstanding loans for about 42 million Americans. Democratic senator from Massachusetts vowed in a proposal released Tuesday to act immediately and not wait for congressional approval because the Secretary of Education has broad authority to compromise on and modify student loans. Okay, there's a lot there. Maybe you'd love that if somebody would do it for you. Maybe you object to it in principle. Maybe you both. Rae Kaplan is the attorney that comes on with us frequently and talks about student loans and borrowing and paying them back. I asked Rae to swing by and comment on this. Welcome back, Rae. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
What do you think of this?
I have a lot of opinions on this. And
did you read her proposal?
I did. I read her proposal. I watched the debates last night, and then I looked up her proposal, and I have a very good, I think, understanding of it.
Do I describe it correctly here, what she's up to?
Yes. So she estimates that it will cost about $1.25 trillion. And just to give you an idea, the Treasury reported income from income tax from 2018 as $1.7 trillion. So this plan alone will cost $1.25 trillion. And you know that that's probably a little on the low side.
Does that mean that that's the amount of money that is out there that has been borrowed and is due to be paid back?
Well, it means that the amount that would be collected, that's what it would cost. So there's a big impact that it would have on our budget. And there are a lot of questions about whether or not the Department of Ed actually has this kind of broad authority.
Okay, but stop right there for a second, Rae. That's the amount of money that is owed.
Yes.
That is the amount of money that would be paid, but that's the amount of money that the government or these lenders would not get that they are due.
Right.
$1.2 trillion.
Right. It's a lot of money.
Okay.
And is it's that all money owed to the Department of Ed, to the federal government.
That's to the federal government? That's not to Chase?
Right. Not to private lenders, just to the Department of Education. So it's money that's owed to the federal government that she would be able to forgive.
We're already, what is it, $14 trillion in debt. Now we're going to just add another one to that?
We're $20 trillion in debt. So, yes, that is one of my issues with it, is that I think that, well, if you read her plan, she's also proposing free universal tuition for 2-year college and 4-year college. And she estimates that that will cost, in addition to this $1.25 trillion, $70 billion per year on top of the $1.25 trillion.
Is that 1.25 over 10 years or is that 1 year?
10 years.
10 years. So $700 billion, did you say, or $70 billion?
70 billion per year.
Is 70 times 10 is $700 billion, so $0.7 trillion add to that. So her plan is over $2 trillion over 10 years.
Right. Then the other issue I have with it is that when you look at who it helps, so the plan only benefits those who've actually gone to college, right?
Yeah.
And those people generally fare much better in our economy. So this plan actually, the top 40% of households going by income would get 2/3 of the savings from Warren's plan, while the bottom 20% would collect only 4% of the savings.
Do that again.
Okay, so the top 40% of households going by income would get 2/3 of the savings from Warren's plan.
2/3 of the savings go to the top 40% wage earners.
Right, while the bottom 20% would collect 4% of the savings.
Oh, that's too bad.
So basically, why are those who went to college more deserving of aid than those who did not?
Yeah.
And, you know, when you take a look at who does this help, it basically helps college-educated people who make $100,000 or less per year. And actually, even people who make more than $100,000 per year still get a ton of forgiveness.
Yeah, that's not a small point. So there's an income cap on hers, which I think there should be.
$250,000.
At $100,000, it starts to graduate down, right? Or
right.
recede.
So more than $100,000, your forgiveness declines $1 for every $3 of income above $100,000.
But this is not for but most college graduates, recent college graduates who are paying off their loans aren't earning $100,000 yet. So if I'm making less than $100,000, I qualify for $50,000 in student loan forgiveness. That's literally written away.
Right.
If I make a little bit more, then I get a little bit less off.
Right. Here's the other problem, is that under our current tax code, when you have debt forgiveness, that's calculated as taxable income by the IRS. So the IRS will say that $50,000 you just got in loan forgiveness is actually part of your gross income. So you get taxed on that as income. What she's saying is that this is going to be tax-free forgiveness, which entails changing the tax code as well.
But that's another interesting point. I'm glad you mentioned that. In the past, when you get loan forgiveness, in other words, it's like we wrote you an invisible check, and then you pay off your debt, the debt goes away. We didn't do that, but we'll conclude that debt forgiveness was income you received. So if I got $50,000 in student aid forgiveness, then I would pay taxes on $50,000. I'd owe $10,000, $15,000, something like that.
Right.
This wouldn't even charge you that.
That's what she's proposing, but there are real questions as to whether or not that's something that you can do, because there's something called there's the Office of Management and Budget, which has to be consulted with anything that an administrative agency like the Department of Ed would do, where there are restrictions on the ability for these administrative agencies from doing things that would significantly increase spending, which I think we can all agree that this would be a significant increase.
We'll pause here. 312-981-7200. Do you like this idea? Tell me this. How much student debt do you or your kids have? And if you've got a specific question about how best to manage that, that's Rae's specialty. So 312-981-7200. If you have kids who are going back to school or are for the first time going to school, who should borrow the money first? Should you put it in the kid's name? Should you put it in the parent's name? What kind of loan should you get? These are the sorts of things Rae always talks to us about. And here's your chance to chime in. Listen, I think college should be free. This is me. You and I have had this conversation before.
Right.
I think at least a public university up to a certain point is certain as going to high school is not only free but mandatory up to a certain age. I think that we should provide at least to the 14th grade free college education. Times have changed. A high school diploma isn't what it used to be. So let's ensure that all of us have equal access to at least a junior college or trade school education. We don't do that. I would do that. But to me, this is not only expensive, but I'm not even sure in principle I like it. I think if you owe money, you owe money. Okay, it's your turn. 312-981-7200. Well, this is weird. All of our phone lines are ringing. If you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance your existing home, call Team Hochberg in December. Team Hochberg helped listeners convert $1.8 million of their home equity to pay off credit cards, car loans, medical bills, collections, judgments. It saved our listeners over $24,000 a month. Last year, Team Hochberg reduced listeners' payments over $196,000 a month for an annualized savings of over $2.3 million. This is Hochberg crunching the numbers, but it's true. This is what he's doing right now. Team Hochberg helped listeners pay off debt and save over $2.3 million. Your debt isn't going to disappear. So if you'd like to pay off your debt and substantially reduce your monthly payments, call Team Hochberg. Do a cash-out refi. Seriously, what are you waiting for? Call Team Hochberg, 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of our listeners. They can't help you if you don't call. 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com. Homeside Financials, an equal housing lender. Their NMLS ID number is 1124061. Rae Kaplan is an attorney with the Kaplan Law Firm. What a coincidence. She's in our studio. I noticed that Elizabeth Warren wants to forgive 95% of the debt that people owe out there. And for 42 million Americans who owe up to $50,000, it would instantly disappear. And if that sounds good for you, maybe this is the strategy, Rae, that if I don't have to pay that off, I'm going to buy food and sneakers and medicine and clothes and maybe afford a house.
Right.
So that money gets churned back into the economy. I think that's a fair...
I agree. I think that that's a fair assessment of what the potential upside would be, and that you're freeing up a lot of money to be paid into the economy. I think it would have a really nice psychological effect, but I think that the actual unforeseen consequences to the budget and fiscally would be bad.
We have to start talking about the $20 trillion. We are leaving forget your grandkids. You're leaving your kids a time bomb.
Yeah.
I think we're
it's
leaving
per person $12,000 or something like that.
Imagine that. And that's, and you may say, I've got $12,000. Does your kid have $12,000? Do you? Do your grandparents have? Everybody.
Right.
Pick up some phone lines?
Sure.
We'll start with George. You're on WGN Radio. George, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. You're on the air. Go.
Thank you. George from Arlington Heights. So my girlfriend and I are going to be getting married here pretty soon, and right now she's got about $65,000 in student debt. That's with her master's degree she's currently getting, as well as her bachelor's. So basically my question is, we want to maximize how we could pay that off as fast as possible. I know there's individual line items within that Stafford loan that I'm not really sure of, but I'm wondering how we should, pay this off as quick as possible.
Hi, George. So I think what we want to do is analyze whether or not it's a good idea to pay it off as quickly as possible, because I'm assuming it's federal loans, right?
That's correct. And she's actually getting her master's right now. So that means her student loans are on, I believe it's deferment.
Right.
I actually don't have student loans myself. So I want to learn as best as possible, too, for, the future.
Yeah, I get it. A lot of people don't want to have that hanging over them. What's your advice?
My advice is to, once she's out of school, is to enroll her in an income-driven payment plan, which would mean that 10% of her discretionary income would go to the payments, and then the balance is forgiven after a certain period.
And that might be as long as 10 years, and then you've got to be willing to live with that. But maybe better that you live with that for 10 years, a modest payment, rather than trying to come up with $60,000.
It generally saves people a ton of money.
But people hate the idea of this $60,000 following them month after month.
It's just, honestly, think of it as a cell phone payment, because that's what it generally amounts to.
Do you know what your payments will be if you guys started paying when she graduates, George?
Roughly, I would say, our payment would be like roughly $400 per month.
Does that sound about right to you?
You said 80,000?
65,000.
Yeah. Well, if you're in an income-driven plan, it would be, if she's in an income-driven plan, make sure it's only based on her income, not both of your incomes, because that under the statute, it's just supposed to be the borrower's income. So you probably can reduce that payment further and get much more forgiveness. And if she goes into the public sector, it's forgiven after 10 years, and she'll get a ton of public sector loan forgiveness.
Thanks for the call, George. Good luck to you. I'll give a phone number and email address or website for our guest in just a minute. Laura had a question. You're on WGN, Laura.
Oh, hi. Hi, this is Laura from Mount Prospect. I've got a daughter who just started her first real job after college graduate, and her income level is less than $30,000, and she's supposed to start repaying her loans in February.
How much does she owe?
$28,000.
Okay.
She will likely have a very low income-driven payment plan too, maybe less than $100 a month or so.
But do you suggest she go on the income-driven repayment plan, or wait and defer till she's making more money?
No, I would suggest that she go ahead and go ahead and enroll in the income-driven payment plan, because the payment, again, it's going to be that 10% of discretionary income. It's going to be very, very low.
Thanks for the call, Laura. I'm just sprinting through some calls because we're nearly out of time, and I want to get as many voices on as we can, including Joyce. You're on WGN. Joyce, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I am adamantly opposed to this, mainly for the simple reason that what about all those people that went to the academies and are paying back a ROTC scholarship? A lot of military people are paying back time into the service because their education was paid for by a scholarship from us taxpayers.
Yeah, that's the trade. You do the time, and then we'll pay the loan.
Right.
There's people who decided not to serve our country, and they're going to get forgiveness too.
You mean under Warren's plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There are fundamental fairness questions about this plan. I mean, there may even be lawsuits for people brought by students who paid their loans and couldn't benefit from this. So that's something else that they're going to have to look out for.
847 said, free college? I want my $21 trillion back. Yeah, I understand how look, I think what she's doing is pie in the sky. She's trying to get elected president. A lot of people have loans, so she said, elect me president, I'll make your loans go away. I don't know that that's going to work, but I think that's what that is. Rae Kaplan, what's the website for your law firm?
Financialrelief.com.
Financialrelief.com, or you can call 312-294-8989.
Exactly.
Financialrelief.com. Thanks for coming in, Rae.
Absolutely.
This is John.